collapsed. Professor Puranik, there is some sort of similarities that you can see from what Rahul Gandhi went through in that Surat court and that Modi surname jibe, and what Siddaramaih here said. But, focusing only on Karnataka elections and the Lingayat sway that is so important for all political parties, how are you reading into Siddaramaih's statements and also the scathing attack that came next from the Bharatiya Janata Party?
Having known Siddaramaih for last 45, 50 years, even as a student, when I was a teacher, the young teacher like you, but Siddaramaih is known for such, what I can say, unguarded or we can say to some extent very damaging googly statements like that. That's possible and all that. Probably Siddaramaih has a grouse against the major communities, which I have seen. His growth as a Ahinda leader, spearheading the backward class movement and also taking clues or lessons from late Mr. Devaraj Aras. I think he wants to project himself as the next Devaraj Aras in the entire state of Karnataka and even for all Ahinda people everywhere, wherever he goes and all that. So Siddaramaih must have undoubtedly come out with that. But there is an element of his inner kind of assessment, saying that all Lingayat chief ministers are corrupt and all that, which he has corrected later, that's okay. But in Kannada, there is a saying, once you make a statement, it is like a pearl falling on the ground and there is no way of damage or keeping it together for shining. And so that one. Now, the second thing is, what a strange coincidence, Kabir. The same day, Vibhuti, with Vibhuti on his forehead, Rahul Gandhi is going to Basavana's Nirvana place, Kudala Sangama. And also, same kind of whatever appeasement and respect, reverence he wants to show to the entire Lingan community without knowing that his own one of the chief ministers, aspirants, and also former chief minister is making such, casual comments. Perhaps, I think it's a very unfortunate thing for Congress. But BJP was searching or waiting for this because a person like Mr. Jagdish Shettar, CM, ex-CM, and Mr. Saudi, Deputy CM, both are very important, prominent leaders still yesterday. Today they say they are betrayed and all these kind of loose cannon shots are always possible. But taking into consideration the impact it is going to have, more so, Siddaramaih is contesting from Orada, where Lingayats are in majority. That's one particular thing he should have been very sensitive also. But, unguardedly he has come out with this prejudices, which I consider it as valid to some extent. But the entire community being used in his words, he has corrected it also. I think Lingayats are generous enough, unlike other major communities who have strong relations of blood or caste sentiments and all that. So,
well, Professor Puranik, Rahul Gandhi has unknowingly put the entire Congress party in troubled and tricky waters with his particular statements. But, pertinent points that you've raised over there as well. Karthike, I would like you to weigh in on this as well, what Professor Puranik is saying. Unguarded googly comments versus freedom of expression. Where do you stand on this spectrum?
I think a couple of things. I have interviewed Siddaramaih myself, and number of times I have been to Siddaramaih's residence. In Mysore, I have interviewed him. So I think Siddaramaih is an old-style politician. He comes from the socialist table. Siddaramaih is not dyed-in-wool Congress politician. But when people say, "Arey, Siddaramaih has made the mistake," for me, do savvy politicians like these mistakes? Has he said this purposely? Why would he say something like that when comments made by a number of politicians have costed Congress a lot of things? The chai wala jibe is the greatest. It's there in the pantheon of the stupid jibes which have been made, which boomeranged on the Congress. Then you had the niche remark. Then you had this Modi remark in which Mr. Gandhi has lost his membership of Lok Sabha. So why do you say things which can come back to you? I think jibe which are related to identity should be avoided. They have to be avoided. And for Mr. Siddaramaih to say this in middle of elections when Lingayat vote is pretty unhappy with Bharatiya Janata Party is suicidal in nature. Is it because he felt so? Is it because he feels deeply his deep animosity against the so-called Yedurappa-based Lingayat leadership because he felt that he could not become chief minister? But I think in politics you have to be careful. But for me, this brings me to another question. Why would Siddaramaih make a silly mistake like that? When Siddaramaih knows that you have DK in the fray, why would he say something like that when Lingayat votes have shifted? Does he feel that the Lingayat vote has swarmed his Ahinda combination within the Congress? You know, there are wheels within wheels. Why would Siddaramaih say he's the corrupt Lingayat leader? Why would he say that? Do you say that if someone has to accuse me, will someone say Karthik is a corrupt Brahmin journalist? Or if someone says that ABCD is a corrupt ABCD Yadav journalist, you don't say that. So why did he have to say that? That is my question. And even in common parlance, people don't use identity to oppose you. Even when Prime Minister attacked Rahul Gandhi in 2013, he was,
So what are you getting at?
He was calling him Shehzada.
What Siddaramaih's a planned step?
Why did he say that? I mean, Siddaramaih is no political lightweight. He's a very heavyweight chief minister. Siddaramaih has his standing. He's a very earthy guy. Mr. Siddaramaih is a very earthy guy. So why will Siddaramaih say that? Kabir, that's my question. Why should he say something like
Certainly.
that? Why should he completely disturb the apple cart? Why would a man like this say something like this? And he has, and everyone knows in social media, once you give a statement, your correndums don't work. They just don't work. Because narrative becomes the truth. We live in a post-truth world. It's your narrative versus mine. And then the narrative would be he against he said this, he said this. He had to say sorry, the guy had to apologize. No one would say, well, Siddaramaih clarified. His clarification would be perceived as an apology. That's the post-truth social media world we live in. So for Siddaramaih to say that, he is not Manish Shankar Iyer. He is different from Manish Shankar Iyer.
Or was it planned, fearing being cornered by the Lingayat sway in the state of Karnataka? Let's try and understand, will this translate into actual damage for the Congress when it comes to voting and the Karnataka Assembly elections?
See, it entirely depends on the fact how Lingayats will move. Bharatiya Janata Party is trying to rope in Lingayats. Bharatiya Janata Party has moved away from hijab, halal, other issues. Lingayats are not very conservative voters. They are religious, but they are not socially conservative. They did not take part in the so-called the hijab, halal politics. It is for this reason first Yedurappa,
right,
and then Mr. Bommai and other political leaders have been saying that these issues are not important to us, Tipu Sultan and all that, because they realize that the Hindutva politics is not working in Karnataka. You see, BJP's politics is combination of Hindutva, development, market, Hindutva, market and mobile. Development comes with it. So in this case, I think Hindutva is not working properly. So they have gone back to market and mobile. The third part you can add is Hindutva, market, mobile and Labharti. So they are focusing on market, mobile and Labharti politics. In UP, they go back to Hindutva because it works very well there. So in this case, what are they talking about? They are talking about subsidies. They are talking about a good governance. But the problem with the Bombay government is that they have been charged with a 40% commission government. You know, if you remember famous Zardari Mr. 10%. Now in this case, BJP is feeling the heat. They are being questioned. And then you have Mr. B.L. Santosh. Papers in New Delhi and Karnataka are awash with the fact that Mr. B.L. Santosh has run into problem with lot of leaders. Now the spin which they are trying to give is that Mr. Santosh and other members of Bharatiya Janata Party are creating space for young Karyakartas, and the older Karyakartas have become very important, the leaders have become important. So it's transitory. So in this transitory phase, BJP can lose election in this transition also. But the fact of the matter is that Mr. Siddaramaih drops in at a time when everything was working for the Congress party. What do people say about Rahul Gandhi? भाई इनसे बोलिए कोई controversial बात ना करें. यही तो बोलते हैं ना राहुल गांधी के बारे में. अरे बेकार में सावरकर का इशू ना उठाएं यार. Because it's irrelevant. You cannot win on culture wars with Bharatiya Janata Party. See, we have to understand what is happening is that Mr. Siddaramaih has walked into a very identity issue. BJP's politics is identity-based politics. It's majoritarian nature. Unfortunately, what Congress is doing is that it is falling back on caste majoritarianism. जिसकी जितनी हिस्सेदारी उसकी उतनी भागीदारी. So one majoritarian politics which primarily believes that the idea of India is around cultural life of Hindus is being replaced by caste majoritarianism. So in this context, I would say that when you have this identity thing, anyway that has happened, and now you again come back to a identity thing which is a very powerful religious sect also. It's just not a caste; it's a religious sect. And it's religious and a religious sect which defines itself not in relationship with other religion. It defines itself in relationship with Hinduism in an opposite way, or the larger traditions of Hinduism in an opposite way. So it's a very tricky issue. It's a very, very sensitive issue. In previous election, there were people who were talking about giving a separate religious status to Lingayats. It created a national furor. Please understand that Gandhiji went on fast in Pune, known as Pune fact, because Ambedkar wanted separate electorates for the Dalits. It didn't happen. So fission within the larger senses of the Hindu community is something very sensitive. And in this context, Mr. Siddaramaih jumps in. Corrupt. Lingayats run the maximum religious and educational institutions in Karnataka.
Not to be messed with in Karnataka.
Their heft just does not come from the voting percentage. People misunderstand that. They are educated people. They run religious institutions. They run educational institutions. They run technical institutions. So people go and study there.
And how visually ironic that you've got
And
Rahul
I think
Gandhi.
Siddaramaih has made a grave mistake by saying this. I think he should apologize 5 times and end the matter. Because Lingayats are coming to the Congress party. Mr. Siddaramaih has actually created a chink in the Congress armour, if you may ask me, right before the elections. A chink in the armour. It may or may not turn out to be an Achilles heel, but if it does, then we all know who to blame.